Hello and thanks for joining us. Today's guest has written 19 books and been translated into more than 50 languages. We're joined by the award-winning British-Turkish writer Elif Shafak. It's a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Now, you're going to start by reading from your new novel, The Island of Missing Trees, which has been translated into French.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll just read a very short excerpt. Once upon a memory, at the far end of the Mediterranean Sea, there lay an island so beautiful and blue that the many travelers, pilgrims, crusaders, and merchants who fell in love with it either wanted never to leave or tried to tow it with hemp ropes all the way back to their own countries. Legends, perhaps, but legends are there to tell us what history has forgotten.
Thank you so much, Elif Shafak. That was from your new novel, The Island of Missing Trees. How would you describe the book?
I think this is a story about love in the time of hatred and division. It's a book that focuses on partition, ethnic violence, and how family traumas are transmitted through stories and silences. So it's a book that also focuses on inherited pain, intergenerational memories. It takes place in Cyprus and the UK. I've been wanting to write about Cyprus for a very long time. This is a beautiful island with beautiful people, north and south. But it's a difficult story to tell because the past is not a bygone affair. It's very much alive and the wounds are not healed yet. So how do you tell the story of such a complicated place? Which has experienced ethnic violence, partition, without yourself falling into the trap of nationalism as an author. I couldn't find an angle until I found the voice of the fig tree. So this book is also the story of one particular fig tree.
And Elif, to tell our audience more about you, your last novel, 10 minutes, 38 seconds in this strange world, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Here in France, you were awarded the Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres for your contribution to literature. The BBC chose your book, The 40 Rules of Love, as one of the 100 novels that shaped our world. And Politico said you're someone who will give you a much-needed lift of the heart, something we need right now. You're also a political activist, an advocate for women's rights and freedom of expression. One of the many interesting things you've been saying over the years that stands out to me is how men should read more fiction. Most people turn to current affairs or news to help them understand the world. Do you think fiction can do that job too?
I sincerely very much believe in this. And it makes me sad sometimes when I hear readers, and it's usually male readers who say this, you know, they come and they say, I want to understand what's going on in the world. So much is happening right now. So I read politics, finance, economy, history, philosophy, but I don't read fiction. My wife reads fiction. My girlfriend reads fiction. So when I hear that, I feel very sad. Inside fiction, there is history, there is politics, there is, neuroscience, there is psychology, but more importantly, perhaps, there is empathy, there is emotional intelligence. And I don't know a single person in this world, whatever we do, whether we're designers, dentists, engineers, students, whatever we do in life, there isn't a single person who doesn't need empathy or emotional intelligence. Fiction tells us truths that can't be told in any other way. So I think in a world which is losing nuances and is becoming very polarized and it's losing empathy, I think we need fiction. And I also believe we need more men to read fiction.
I totally agree. And talking about world issues in your work has caused conflict with the Turkish government. You moved to London after your novel, The Bastard of Istanbul, led to a trial for insulting Turkishness because the character referred to the massacre of Armenians in the First World War as a genocide. Other books have been examined by Turkish prosecutors on the grounds of crimes of obscenity because they address topics like child abuse and sexual violence. What keeps you going, Elif?
I love the art of storytelling. I love books. To me, this is very existential. I was a very lonely child. I was raised by a single mother, a working mother, and I was on my own throughout my childhood, teenage years, for long stretches of time. I was also raised by a traditional grandmother. So I think from my mother, I learned the love for written culture, and from my grandmother, the love for oral culture. But my point is, books were my companions from an early age onwards. So I do believe that books change us and they heal us. Words heal us. So that keeps me going.
Another interesting topic you talk about is the danger of tribes and only surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. You recently posted a video on your YouTube channel talking about the word vaccine, something causing enormous debate and separation in a post-COVID world. Let's just take a look at that.
Any ideology that divides humanity into us versus them and believes that us is somehow better than them or superior to them, I think any ideology that does that is problematic in my eyes.
Now, in the video, you talk about vaccine tribalism, vaccine chauvinism. This week here in France, people who haven't had the third booster jab will no longer have a health pass. This vaccine is really creating a them and us sentiment, isn't it? Is that unavoidable, do you think?
I'm very critical of the way vaccine nationalism works, in the sense that richer countries, Western countries, are in a way hoarding vaccines. And meanwhile, millions of people across Africa, South America, Asia, they don't have equal access to vaccines and treatments. So what I'm trying to emphasize is inequalities. I think we're living in a world in which we have to honestly, directly address inequalities. And they're all connected. So for instance, if you care about climate injustice or climate catastrophe, I think you should care about gender injustice or gender inequality, because most of the people who are affected, primarily dislocated from these displacements, are women and children. So my point is, there are widening and deepening inequalities in the world, and they affect all of us. It is an illusion to think that by erecting walls and closing doors, we are going to keep other people's problems at bay. We're living in a world that is deeply interconnected. So rather than nationalism or tribalism or vaccine nationalism, what we need is a proper global solidarity, and especially global sisterhood among women.
Now, this mentality, the them and us mentality, is one of the themes of your new book, set around the Cypriot Civil War in 1974. There's a Romeo and Juliet-style couple at the centre of the story. Kostas is Greek and Christian, and Daphne is Turkish and Muslim. Ada is their daughter, growing up in London. There's a moment near the start of the book when Ada screams out in class. What are you telling us with that scene and inherited pain?
I think that it almost feels like there's a scream building up inside so many people, especially young people. We're living in a world in which it's not easy to be young. Of course, many generations have experienced lots of hardships, obstacles, but they always retained the belief that tomorrow was going to be better than yesterday, that if you give proper education to the next generations, they were going to have better job opportunities. That faith is completely lost today. Nobody believes in the time of climate destruction, in a time when AI is moving so rapidly. Nobody believes that tomorrow is necessarily going to be better than yesterday. So it is a time of anxiety. I think the age we're living in is the age of anger, angst, an existential angst.
And in the book, it's not just collective memory that bears the scars of the past, but also natural history and ecosystems. There are long passages about climate change, some told by the unusual narrator, the fig tree. We learn a lot about trees in the book. What made you want to make nature such a big focus?
I think we're at a major crossroads. This is a critical time in which we need to urgently reconnect with nature, with our inner democracy, but also with each other as human beings. And we have so much to learn from trees. In a place like Cyprus, where there's a partition line which literally separates Christians from Muslims and Greeks from Turks. So it's along ethnic and religious lines, a place that has experienced a lot of ethnic violence and division. It is not only human lives that have been lost, but an entire ecosystem has also suffered. So I want to draw attention to how, when we destroy each other as human beings in the name of nationalism, in the name of fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, and so on, we're also destroying our entire ecosystem. And trees are remarkable. They live longer than us. They are connected both under and above the ground. And from a tree's perspective, everything is interconnected. We humans like to believe that we're the center of the world, that we're superior to everything, and that arrogance is so dangerous. So we urgently need to learn to think like a tree, or we need to learn more from trees.
And the importance of reconnecting with nature, especially since the pandemic, is much more important for people, as is cooking and food. I love the use of food in the book to help Ada reconnect with her roots in Cyprus and her past, and also as a way of bonding with her mum's sister. And the menu in the book almost made me book a ticket to Cyprus then and there. Why is food so important in relation to memory and identity, do you think?
I think food is always more than food, isn't it? It's a language. It's how we communicate. As I mentioned, I was raised by a very traditional grandmother for whom also food was a language. And I have seen women like that who have experienced so many hardships. They want to tell you about that, but they don't know how. So instead they feed you. And they retain this almost naive belief that if we could all sit around the same table and break bread together, maybe there would be less misunderstandings in the world. Sometimes I jokingly think there are these baklava wars in the Middle East and in the Levant. We Turks like to believe that we make the best baklava. The Lebanese say it's their baklava. The Greeks say our baklava is the best. And so do the Syrians and so on. But of course, the beauty of it is that it's nobody's baklava. And that's the power of food, because it does transcend ethnic, nationalistic boundaries.
You have a YouTube channel dedicated to the importance of words, which is fascinating. Do you have a favourite word?
It's magic that by shifting, reshuffling letters, you can create endless meanings. So I couldn't choose just one particular word, but all I can say is words have a power to hurt, but they also have the power to heal.
OK, we're going to leave you with some snippets from the videos to give viewers a taste. Elif Shafak, thank you so much. Your new novel, The Island of Missing Trees, is available in French now. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
It is okay not to be okay all the time.
Say
LGBTQ+. What does it mean? Does it matter? We don't have enough words to understand the complexity of love, because we're trying to lump together a broad range of experiences. Let's take our anger, let's hold it in our hands, let's recognize its existence, embrace it, respect it, but then turn it into something much more positive.